The old ways of working, which is the command and control, the leader as this very strong, stoic person, or the workaholic CEO who's working 15 hours a day, where ulcers are a badge of pride, don't work in this world any longer.
What if you didn't have your visiting card? Where do you draw your identity from? And that stayed with me over the years.
Women have not held positions of power. Right? A man has a visiting card. Women typically have not even had that position of power. So it's very important for them to draw from their personal power.
You have your work is important, but do you have a life and an identity outside of work? And what that does is it really helps you to energize yourself. I'm sure all of us have various passions that we follow, right? And every time we are playing a sport or performing somewhere or listening to music, we get energized. And I think that's important for us to be able to then perform to our potential and nurture others. So I think that's where this whole thought also came from.
Also, the expectation the world has is that women are natural nurturers. Men and women both need to be nurturing. Just because you're a woman, you needn't be nurturing. And it is something we can learn and acquire as a critical leadership skill.
For example, a few things that leaders talk about. One is the importance of showing up. Right? And that's very, very important. No matter how my situation is, I might have something not great happening at home, or there might be pressure somewhere else, stress coming from somewhere. As a leader, I need to show up and show up in a way that keeps the morale of the team and the organization up.
The ability to nurture is not always inherent or inborn. It is a skill. It's a set of tools and practices that we can acquire. It's a mindset shift that both men and women can and need to make. I need to find the sweet spot between self-orientation and other orientation. So leaders need to find that sweet spot. I need to balance between being very disciplined but also being flexible. Right? I can't say this is the only way I do it. At the same time, I cannot be without a structure.
You are, end of the day, a human being who's now got a responsibility in a certain position. But that doesn't make you a superman or a superwoman, right? So it's still important for you to be vulnerable, authentic, compassionate towards yourself as well, right? Am I being forgiving to myself? Am I being okay with being able to only do so much? The one piece which differentiates a good leader and a great leader is the middle part, which is taking others along with you.
It's important to realize that each relationship is unique and different. And we've seen many other marriages close up front. So each has a different dynamic that works. I think you have to figure out what is the dynamic that works for us.
So leader is able to build a culture which supports collaboration, which supports team working, where people work towards that common vision and agenda, and they are all able to work closely towards that agenda. That really shapes the kind of culture that you want.
In this episode of Jugalbandi, I have with me Rajesh Ramakrishnan and Nirupama Subramanian, both authors of this book that I'm holding in my hand, The Nurturing Quotient. Nirupama is the founder and CEO of Power Life Solutions that she runs as an organization, and Rajesh, a supportive partner with her, also in his last role was the MD of Perfetti Venmel India, has been awarded Economic Times Inspiring CEO Award as recently as 2022. Welcome to Jugalbandi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Afrida. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I want to then begin by asking you about this, right? The nurturing quotient. Shall we begin with you, Rajesh ji?
Sure.
What is the nurturing quotient? What do you mean by nurturing quotient?
Yeah, so what the premise for the book was that in today's world, there is a lot of things happening around us, and it takes a toll on leaders. And it's important for leaders to periodically put back energy into themselves so that they can perform to their full potential, and in turn they can nurture others to perform to their potential as well. So we said, let's create something which allows us to find how leaders can nurture themselves and nurture others. And just like EQ and IQ, we decided to come with this concept of NQ, which is the nurturing quotient, which is a measure of ability to nurture self and ability to nurture others.
I will go a little bit more into this, but I want to take Nirupama's word on this as well, as to how you thought of coming together to write this book. What was the idea? And I do see that you've met over 25,000 leaders across 60 plus organizations over a period of time,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But for this book as well, it was like a whole range of leaders, CEOs that both of you met. Can you tell us more
Yes.
about
Right? So in my work with Powerful Life, and for the last 25 years, I've been working in the field of leadership development, both as a facilitator, as a designer of programs, as well as an executive coach. And I noticed that there were some things that kept coming up again and again in my conversations and interactions with leaders, is that we're feeling very stressed, it's a huge challenge, things are changing rapidly, and we're really struggling to get the best out of people, especially across generations. So I said, why are leaders struggling so much? And I also came to hear that the old ways of working, which is the command and control, the leader as this very strong, stoic person, or the workaholic CEO who's working 15 hours a day, where ulcers are a badge of pride, don't work in this world any longer, right? After COVID, we saw there is no question of work-life balance, it's work-life integration. The young people who are entering the workforce need a completely different model of leadership. They are no longer going to stick around in the same organization for 25 years. So these were some of the things that, I picked up in the course of my work. And of course, Rajesh brings 30 years of experience in the corporate world, being a leader, being a managing director. And, we were actually having a conversation that, what is going on, what is really happening. And also our own lived experience is that we do a whole lot of things outside what we call work.
Yeah, I'm picking up from what you just said,
Yes.
and maybe, Rajesh, you can add to this, that what Nirupama is saying, a new model for the workforce today. We need to break free from the old,
Yes.
because things have changed. Some of it is damaging for us, and incorporate maybe a few things which can help us all.
Absolutely.
And we need, the likes of you who have worked with leaders across spectrum to understand what those things are.
Correct.
What are those things?
Yeah, I came across this thing a few years ago, which is, what if you didn't have your visiting card? Where do you draw your identity from? And that stayed with me over the years.
Wow.
And that's
Who
a
are
very, sorry,
Who
who
do
are
you-
you,
who do
right?
you
I
perceive
mean, other than the
yourself?
fact that you're a president or a managing director or a executive director. And I think that's where the importance of being a holistic person comes from, right?
Okay.
So you have your work is important, but do you have a life and an identity outside of work? And what that does is, it really helps you to energize yourself. I'm sure all of us have various passions that we follow, right? And every time we are playing a sport or, performing somewhere or listening to music, we get energized.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for us to be able to then perform to our potential and nurture others. So I think that's where this whole thought also came from.
That's so important, and I really would appreciate the fact that you feel that there is identity beyond work identity, because oftentimes we think our identity is what we do. Ab karte kya ho?
Exactly.
Yes.
And in certain cultures, especially in men folk, I think
Yes.
it's about क्या औकात है, आपकी
Exactly.
हैसियत क्या है, आप क्या करते हो.
बिल्कुल.
But you are saying that there is more to it, and you need to discover yourself and build that persona. But coming to the point about women in the
Yes.
workforce, we have a very different set of challenges again.
Completely.
To begin with, the whole choice of whether to have a family
Yes.
or to focus on career, that conflict. And let's face it, I mean, women who choose kids often have to face slightly more difficult time in getting
Completely.
the opportunities that they deserve.
Very true. And in fact, a lot of my work is on women leadership. In fact, my last book, the third book, is called Powerful, The Indian Woman's Guide to Unlocking Her Full Potential, where I actually have done a lot of research, I've created a model, and I take this to women who are leaders, because firstly, there are very few women in leadership roles. And the ones who are there do have a different set of challenges than what the men have as well. And women have not held positions of power. Right? A man has a visiting card. A women typically have not even had that position of power. So it's very important for them to draw from their personal power. And which is what we hope that the Nurturing Quotient also provides, is understanding yourself, devoting time for yourself. So interestingly, all the women we worked with had to be very intentional about self-care. Because they actually are quite overloaded also on the personal front in terms of carrying the domestic load. And leadership
Forget
is
themselves.
yes,
Because they completely sink in
Exactly.
with the work pressure or the family.
And leadership is an added responsibility where you haven't let go of the other caregiving responsibility, but you've got this added responsibility. So for women, they have to be even more intentional about nurturing themselves. And also the expectation the world has is that women are natural nurturers, which in my research is not true. I actually have one feminine archetype called the mother, which it's not the most common or the
Really?
popular
That's
archetype.
interesting. But that's how society perceives
Society
you.
perceives,
Stereotypes.
and and people expect, oh, let's get a woman. And I've had male leaders say, we want to get more women in our organization
To get
because
the
they're so
nurturing
nurturing element. Where I believe that men and women both need to be nurturing. Just because you're a woman, you needn't be nurturing. And it is something we can learn and acquire as a critical leadership skill. Right? We always talk about leadership skills of business acumen. I need to understand finance or even emotional intelligence. But the ability to nurture is not always inherent or inborn. It is a skill. It's a set of tools and practices that we can acquire. It's a mindset shift that both men and women can and need to make.
Yeah. So set of tools, let's understand it. Is there an easier way? Is there an acronym perhaps that you can help my viewers, quick reckoner on what are the set of tools?
Yeah.
Sure.
Develop a nurturing quotient.
Yeah, I can talk about a couple of them, and I'm sure
Yeah.
Nirupama can add as well. So when it comes to nurturing the self, we've called it, physical well-being, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being, right? So there's the mind, body, heart, and soul.
Okay.
And how can one nurture themselves along all 4 domains of energy? When it comes to nurturing others, we've come up with this acronym called MILE, M-I-L-E, which is mentoring and coaching, inspiring, listening, and empowering. So these are 4 ways in which MILE, in which leaders can sort of nurture others. And maybe you can add a couple of other acronyms.
Yeah, and we also found that behaviors come from certain qualities, and we found 4 critical qualities that are important to be a nurturing leader, and we call that HOPE, H-O-P-E, because you always nurture with the hope that things will grow and come to their full potential. First is humility, to know that as a leader you don't have to be the expert. You can delegate, you can empower, and your role is not to be the expert or the commander. So you need a little bit of humility for that. You need openness to receiving, openness to giving, openness to new ideas, or openness to the people. And that comes from, they all are connected. And the third one, which we found very critical, is the P, which is patience.
Oh, yes.
Because plants and children, which need nurturing, don't grow in a day. You can't stuff them full of steroids and expect instant results, but we want our people to hit the ground running, to perform from day one and all of that. But
Instant
they take
results,
time,
instant
instant
gratification
results,
doesn't work.
exactly. So it's not like people are not, 2-minute instant noodles that they will immediately give you results. So patience and of course empathy. Knowing that no 2 people are the same.
Again
that-
connected, right?
Again
Patience
connected.
and empathy.
So all, one without the others will not make you a nurturing leader. So that's what we call HOPE. And then we said tools and practices need to be creating and leading to habits. So at the end we say, how do you actually create habits? We have a tool, a framework we call ASH, because you want ASH and Aram and ease in your life, which is become aware first of yourself, what you need to do. Set a very strong intention, that's the AI. And then of course, then you start.
Aware, intention, okay.
And then start. Start acting, because you can't just sit and say,
hope
tomorrow
everything
I'll do it,
happens.
day after I will do it. And
Begin
the age,
somewhere.
and the age is habit formation.
Yeah.
Start, but don't stop. Do
Consistent.
it consistently. So nurturing skills and behaviors, you can become aware and say, I want to be a nurturing leader, start acting, and then make it into a habit of being
so
a
beautiful.
nurturing
and
leader.
I see there's a connect between these 2 acronyms
All of
also.
them.
Like when you said, patience and
Yes.
empathy, patience also will allow you to be consistent or to develop those habits, because you are not looking for instant results. You are going to be consistent anyway. And then hope in the long term, not hoping for things to turn overnight, set goals and be patient. And it's very useful for me. So I'm just lapping it all up.
I'm glad.
So tell me, Rajesh, when you went about meeting CEOs, and these are leaders in their own right, I have noticed this having worked also in many media organizations. They have certain qualities always to sort of, sometimes, bosses, they have to maintain a certain demeanor, and they feel that unless they do that, they are not going to earn the respect. So they maintain a certain distance, they maintain some maybe a little bombastic in their style or the way they talk, because they feel unless we do that, why will people respect me? I have to throw my weight around.
Yeah.
What would be your response to someone who believes that? And in your experience, did you come across?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And if you look at leadership and leaders, there are all kinds, right? And we had the good fortune of meeting over 117 CEOs. So, we came across different kinds of leaders with very different kinds of styles. And for many of them, those styles were working for them as well, right? But, for example, a few things that leaders talk about. One is the importance of showing up, right? And that's very, very important. No matter how my situation is, I might have something not great happening at home, or there might be pressure somewhere else, stress coming from somewhere. As a leader, I need to show up and show up in a way that keeps the morale of the team and the organization up. So, you have leadership from that perspective as well. At the other same time, we also had a few leaders who love to talk about, yes, this is what we did and this is how we turned around a business, or we took care of a challenge, and so on and so forth. So I guess it's a mix of the go-getters, ambitious ones. And I think that's the beauty of this book, in the sense that we had all kinds of leaders with very, very different leadership styles. But yet we were able to pull out nuggets of wisdom from them, which then got interspersed in the book in the relevant section.
Yeah. What about you, Nirupama? In your interaction, what are the things that you felt are your biggest takeaways from those interactions?
Yeah, I think firstly a huge variety, right? There's a diversity of inputs and opinions, and I thought there is no one single way of nurturing yourself. In fact, which is what we were able to distill and cull out from these interviews, really the factors that impact how you nurture, which comes from your values. What have you grown up with? So people who've had a strong value of giving to others are more nurturing of others. The second was personality types. If you take your simple personality assessment, which has a factor called extraversion and introversion, extroverts get more energy from the engaging and connection, and introverts get energy more from within themselves. So that also impacts how I get my energies as well. So we found personality factors makes a difference. We found culture makes a difference. Your organization culture, is it very driven? Does it actually account for care and empathy? Your national culture. Right? So we've seen in Europe, for example, there is a greater stress on having more of a life outside work. Your holidays are very important, but in certain other cultures, work has to consume you. And even family subcultures, which is, each family also is a little different. Are they very social? Are they very spiritual? That also makes an impact.
All of that reflects in your leadership
All
style.
of that it reflects. And second is, we found it's always a tussle, right? Like you mentioned, right? I need to find the sweet spot between self-orientation and other orientation. So leaders need to find that sweet spot. I need to balance between being very disciplined but also being flexible. Right? I can't say this is the only way I do it. At the same time, I cannot be without a structure. The third interesting one was between ambition and compassion. Right? You're ambitious for yourself, but can you also be compassionate of others?
That's a tough one, I would say.
Yeah.
Because you hear these words, things like, you have to keep up the momentum.
Yes.
You can't let it slip.
Yes.
So I have seen again in
Yes.
the world of television, it's a lot of it. And the newsroom is a madhouse, right? So
Right.
you can't let it slip, and in that you get into such a frenzy, and then even sometimes you forget the basic decency of human behavior. There are newsrooms where people don't say hello to each other. It's like it's not a done thing. We are too busy. We are just like machines, delivering.
Yeah.
So, do you think there's a realization now somewhere that this has to change, or is that something you're trying to bring in?
Yeah, and I think just to build on what you were saying, I think compassion has two components to it. One is compassion towards others, right? And the second is self-compassion. And I think leaders also, one of the things we realize is need to be a little bit more forgiving of themselves. You are, end of the day, a human being who's now got a responsibility in a certain position. But that doesn't make you a superman or a superwoman, right? So it's still important for you to be vulnerable, authentic, compassionate towards yourself as well, right? Am I being forgiving to myself? Am I being okay with being able to only do so much? So I think this whole angle of self-compassion takes on a very different dimension in today's context, and leaders it's important to set the bar high, but at the same time be aware that everything may not happen the way you want it to. We will work towards that high bar, but things may not happen, and we should be okay with that, right? So I think that's the self-compassion part of it. And to your other point, the compassion. How do you balance between the business agenda and the people agenda? And that's always a tough one, right? What we call tough love.
Yeah.
You need to be tough to get the results
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
At the same time, you need to still love the people and care for them enough to say that it's the people who are going to end up
So
driving
is
the
there a
results.
formula that you know that you've cracked the code on this?
It's a lifelong journey. I think whether you're a parent or a
Yeah,
leader,
true.
you are learning, and I think
You
we're
said
all
something about the garden analogy
Yes,
when we were talking
yes.
before the interview. Please explain that to the
Yeah,
viewers.
yeah. So I think this has been around, but of course, since we're talking about nurturing, and our
Yeah.
cover also has a plant, the idea is to look at the leader's work as that of a gardener,
Okay.
right? Not as a general or not as a taskmaster, but that of a gardener. And we saw there are 4 processes that you need to do. First is prepare the soil, which is the organization culture, the climate, the environment, and it's a leader's role to make sure the soil or the environment is really conducive to
Yeah,
growth.
not contaminated.
Not contaminated,
Or at least
right?
identify if there's an
Exactly,
infection somewhere.
absolutely, right?
Yeah.
What it's usually the mission, the vision, the values, and we do a lot of work in helping organizations identify that. So prepare the soil first, and that's a big differentiator in whether your plant will grow or not. Then plant the seeds. Get the right people on board, respect the people. And one of the leaders actually said this, I hire for vibes. That I want to see that you and the soil are compatible, that you will grow in this soil and the soil can
That
take
is
you.
so important.
And also planting the seeds of new ideas, new thoughts. So that's what a leader does. And then continuously provide sunshine and water, which is the mentoring, the coaching, the
That is again the
motivation, the
nurturing
feedback.
part.
The
That is the
enablement, yeah.
nurturing
Enabling
part.
environment.
Exactly. And the last, which is also important, is pulling out the weeds. And which is, do I root out the negative energies, the elements? And sometimes, what you thought was a very
That's a
going to
tricky one, I
that's
think.
a tricky one. Is, as they say, sometimes you have to kill your darlings, and sometimes you have to say that this no longer serves us as an organization.
And sometimes you
And
have to
let
let
that
go
go.
of a person
Exactly.
who may be very good
Yes.
and productive,
But is
but
Absolutely.
is doing a lot of harm to
Toxic.
the work culture
Absolutely.
and the work
Yeah.
Yes,
environment.
exactly.
And 5 other people are demotivated because of one person who's very highly efficient.
Exactly.
Happens, right?
Yeah. And then you have weeds slowly taking over your garden if you're not doing the pruning and the cutting from time to time. So which is why all of this requires patience. It requires hope.
And also
right?
intuitive. I guess I would
Yes.
take the liberty to say, Rajesh, that we women have a far greater intuition.
He will agree.
Plus one.
Yeah,
on that.
exactly.
When it comes to that, like
Yes,
I feel that
yes.
I have a very strong instinct about a person who I
Yes.
have in the newsroom,
Yes.
in my team,
Yes.
and I can tell.
Tap
One
into
may
that.
be highly efficient, but my productivity goal is again, something that I want to do all together.
Yes.
I don't want one single person to be, driving it
Yes.
at the expense of many others
Correct.
who's being, snubbed or whatever.
Absolutely.
Being suppressed or their productivity being suppressed. So that
Yes.
is something I feel as a woman I'm very good with, sort of judging and constantly looking at.
Yes.
And there, again, nothing to take away from the capabilities of men colleagues or male colleagues, but I'm just saying for that. One more point I want to ask you, and this is a very famous line worldwide, it's been around, that culture eats strategy for lunch or breakfast, one of the two. Where do you stand on that? And first of all, if you can explain also what it means.
Yeah, I came across a very interesting, simple leadership model about 2-3 decades ago, right? Which said, set the agenda, take others with you, and do it the right way.
Okay.
So it was a simple 3-step model which I have used throughout my working life, right? And if you look at it, what's the setting of the agenda part of it, which is about, like she said, having mission, vision, values, and creating a strategy, which you can still outsource and get some of these consultants to come and do, right?
Okay.
The third one, doing it the right way, is about having the right systems and processes, the right ethical practices, governance, etc. The one piece which differentiates a good leader and a great leader is the middle part, which is taking others along with you, right? And I think that's what leadership is all about, right? So if a leader is able to build a culture which supports collaboration, which supports team working, where people work towards that common vision and agenda, and they are all able to work closely towards that agenda, that really shapes the kind of culture that you want. So to your point, can culture eat, strategy for breakfast, lunch and dinner? Absolutely yes. If you have the right culture in the organization, and that requires
that is more likely to
patience.
help you rather than a strategy, a foolproof one with,
A strategy is important, don't get me wrong, but that can be outsourced. Right? If I can't
Yeah.
build a strategy by myself, I can get a McKinsey or a BCG or a Bain to come and build strategy for me. But the culture I have to create along with my team, and that's the more sustainable one to deliver on the strategy.
Correct.
So fully agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautifully said. Now, can I come to the point that you are a husband and wife working on a common project, and Jugalbandi is all about
Yeah.
talking
Yes.
about how do couples manage this? Nirupama, what were the pitfalls? What are the pitfalls? Let's be
To write
very
another
frank.
book on this, yeah. So this
Working with the
is
spouse.
yes. So it's interesting. Of course, we do say we collaborate on this. After sharing this, that the word collaborate has the word labor in it.
Labor. Oh, yes.
Yes.
It does.
So labor is not easy.
Labor of love.
Yeah. It's a labor
Oh,
of
see,
love.
that's a good attitude
Yeah,
towards it, see?
I was thinking labor pains as a woman. Yeah, right. So it is. I want to say that similar to that, right? It's not easy. I won't say collaboration is easy. But you might have to go through labor pains, but the output of it is something really beautiful. This is not a book I would have written on my own. I've written 3 books. So I'm used to, writing is a solitary activity, in my opinion,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
You sit on your own, that lonely writer sitting by himself or herself, typing out and creating, is what I experienced in my books, and I enjoy that. I love the process of writing. But I believe a book like this would not have happened if we hadn't collaborated.
But what were the
with
levels, what were the rules of engagement? Like, how did you collaborate? What was the division of labor like?
yeah. So which I think the important thing was we were aligned on the overall topic, the theme, and the big chunks,
Okay.
right? That we both truly believe that this is an important topic. We bring a different kind of experience. Mine as a consultant, having worked with multiple leaders, and Rajesh from being on the ground as a managing director, as a leader
the
who
real
has
life
led
experience.
people, who has taken it along and who lives the nurturing leadership. And I truly respect him as a leader who has lived whatever he puts in.
Thank you.
See, so we have to keep doing these
keep
things
doing
as well.
Recognizing.
Recognizing.
It works beautifully. It works
Exactly.
beautifully. When
So
you
it-
find a
yes.
supportive partner, someone
Yes.
who appreciates your values. Yeah, correct.
And that's why alignment of values were there. Did we have disagreements? Every day, right? I think, and that is what I think collaboration is all about. That if it were easy, if you immediately agreed, you might not come up with an output which is distinct or
what
unique.
What I find, and correct me if I'm wrong, the good part of maybe husband and wife working together would be that you would not hesitate from taking liberties to say no, but this is not true. There is no
All the time.
this cannot happen. You will be more free to
Yes.
do that. Depends, of
Yes.
course, on the dynamic of
Yes.
the couple. But
Yes.
I would imagine that with your spouse, अब इसमें क्या शर्माना बोल देती हूँ. Like, let
बिल्कुल.
me just be frank with him.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you do have the good intention towards your
Exactly,
spouse.
exactly.
That would be one of the driving things. So it works, I think, both ways.
Yeah.
That first you do want the best for your spouse, and therefore you will
Yes.
not mince words. Whereas if you are working with a colleague, you have to sometimes walk on the
Yeah.
eggshells,
That's
right?
true.
Exactly. And it's like similar to bringing up a child. Of course, that's our for earlier collaboration is getting our daughter to adulthood. And they say it takes a village to raise a child, and you need to have that collaboration. You bring in
So
different
that
skill
practice
sets.
helped here.
Of course. And we are classmates
Oh,
from
wonderful.
XLRI as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we were just meeting a couple of our classmates this weekend. They said, we started collaborating on that project. Remember that project? We all worked together, some marketing project 32 years ago. So, so we
But
have done that.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I have this mindset where a man and a woman coming together,
Yeah.
I feel can do beautiful things. Again, because of the complementary
Yes.
Attributes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rajesh?
Yeah, and if I can just add to what Nirupama was saying, I think what she brings in is a lot of Rishika energy, which is she's a knowledge seeker, right? So she brings in a lot of research. She knows a lot of stuff, and then taking those research and from various books, etc., and concepts to practical application. So that's the strength she brings to the table. I am a connector. I love engaging with people, connecting with people. So this CEO thing, just to share a small anecdote, our initial thought was let's talk to 20 or 25 CEOs, get some insights on and hypothesis on how leaders work and how they nurture themselves, and we'll use that as small research to do some to write the book. That 20 became 30, 30 became 50. It went close to 100. Then Penguin said, why don't we get it to 100? Eventually, we met 117 CEOs.
Yeah.
So my thing was, okay, I can, tap into my network, get inputs from these various CEOs, see how we can connect the dots. So in that way, it worked beautifully because she brought in a lot of research expertise, and having worked with so many leaders in different areas, I could bring in a completely different dimension. And that synergy actually
But did you
took it
not
to a
at
different
any
level.
point of time feel you had too much of each other now? Like you're always, at home and at work. Be honest.
Yes.
Well.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
So,
Does
this.
it seem like for him? He enjoyed it more than you did.
Looks like it.
So that's interesting. Would have been married. We'll be married for 30 years this June, this month.
This
in
month?
fact, 30
Oh,
years.
okay.
That's a long time. You get used to each other's idiosyncrasies and things like that. But I'll also say on the other side, a lot of our friends, I mean, my women friends who are all in our late 40s and early 50s, actually say, how do you work with him around all
All
the
the
time?
time. Yeah.
We are just waiting for our husband to go out of the office, and then we get our me time.
Yeah.
And
There are
individual.
very few couples who are in sync, and let's face it, I mean, those who are in sync do wonderful things together.
Yeah.
Let's be honest
Yeah.
about it. They manage to do.
Manage.
That's why this book is a
Yeah.
reality.
But at the same time, we also gave each
Give
other
space.
space, right?
I think that's
So we divided the chapters. She wrote a few chapters. I wrote separately. I wrote a few
Yeah.
chapters. Then we looked at each other's work to say, hey, this could be slightly different, or what do you think of this, and so on. So I
Yeah.
think it's getting the right balance between them.
And I think respect is very important, right? We respect what each person
Brings to the
brings
table,
to
yeah.
the table. He respects my writing, my inputs and insights, and I respect whatever he brings in, the
But what
feedback.
about the conflicts? Has there never been a time where you were like, you disagree?
Yeah.
You just simply disagree. What do you do with disagreements?
I mean, for me, I don't think there was
And
any
their
violent disagreement
That's
over
that's the
anything.
key word. No violent.
No violence.
disagreement.
I mean, we had a difference of
Yeah,
opinion.
difference of
All the
And
time,
Can
right?
be resolved?
Yeah.
So
Or who gives in more? Who accepts?
see, the good thing is we both believe that compromise is not a weakness.
Okay.
Right? I think that's important. Sometimes he gives in, sometimes I give in, sometimes it's out of exasperation, sometimes it's out of, yes, I truly believe this is a better thing. Right? So, for example, I would have said 25 CEOs, 25 leaders, it's enough. This is not going to be about 100 CEOs. We don't need
In
that.
25, you get it all.
In 25, I get it all. What new thing? Then he said, no, I think, it's better, it's more. And I realized that I came from a sense of it's too much effort, but Rajesh has a gift. It comes naturally. And has the book benefited from diverse inputs? Obviously. So we had to discuss and debate. Then I said, hard stop at 100. And he came up with 5 more. That one is very
somebody
interesting. So we
somewhere has to put their
disagreed.
foot down.
Yes.
But in the end, you do allow the other to take a few liberties, and then you somewhere, then again, you
Exactly.
Then
draw
we
the boundaries
somewhere,
as
right?
well.
And as I said, it's a constant process, right? It's we don't agree on everything, but I like to believe we agree on the important
The big
things.
one.
Bigger things.
And
Okay.
we both have a similar goal at the end. So, which is why it's about I give, and we don't look at it as I give in to you
So the egos
now.
don't come at play ever when you
Or I am listening to you now, next time you listen
Okay.
to me. Though each of us, I think, secretly feels
Secretly
that we listen to the
feels
other
scorecard
person
there.
more than they listen
there
to
is
us.
some scorekeeping. whether-
Yeah.
Of course.
So
of course.
he feels that he's always giving in and listening to me. I feel I'm always giving in, listening. So that I think is there. It shows up in the little things we say to each other.
But that's part of the process.
But that's
right?
part
There
of
should
the
be a playfulness
process,
about
right?
it, I feel,
Exactly.
you can
So I think
take it easy about
absolutely one of the things couples don't give too much value is to have a sense of humor and
I
take
agree.
things lightly and not make everything this
Too
huge
heavy and
Depends on
cumbersome.
drama.
yeah.
I think what works is we both are not big drama people. It's like we're both like,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm going to come to
get
that
on
now.
with
I'm going to
it.
start with you because as I conclude the interview, my process is to ask you what are the mantras. That's my favorite word. For say, let's begin with a successful relationship.
Yeah. I think
30 years. What makes you tick?
like what she said, I think one is mutual respect. That's very important, right? Because there are two
Respect
people.
of space as well.
Respect
Likes
in
and
all
dislikes,
aspects. Yeah,
everything.
likes, dislikes. Like I'm a big extrovert. I love meeting people. I draw energy from people. She is relatively
Less,
big,
then you
less,
respect
and
Yeah.
So there are times when I say, okay, I'm going out and meeting people. She would be happy with her Netflix and a popcorn or a book.
Yes,
or
very true.
Whatever, right? So again, by having the respect for that, Having a respect for each other's work. Like
And not resenting it. I think the other side would be, the flip side would be resenting, oh, she never comes up.
Yeah.
Whereas here
I'm happy
it's
to
like
go.
you're happy to have her do her thing.
There are things we do
don't
together.
resent about it.
Yeah, there
You
are
don't
things.
resent it.
Not at all. You know, there are things we do together, but there are also things where I say I'm going and doing this. I have a lot of other passions in life. Photography is a passion, so I go off on my photography expeditions
And
every
you
once
are
in a while.
supportive, that you feel
totally.
encouraging. So it's not
100%.
She's very happy.
Go.
Yeah.
Go do your thing. Because that's, you know, I think Khalil Gibran or somebody said something very beautiful about marriages. Let there be space in your togetherness. So I think giving that space to each other, letting
and not resenting it. By the way, couples will give space, but internally they somewhere don't like
The
it.
Tarla Desai movie we saw.
Tarla
Tarla Dalal movie, sorry.
yeah.
That they
Deep
feel,
down there is a
they
little-
feel that he's never around and he has his own thing going, and what does he care about me?
Okay,
if that is growing, then it's not healthy.
Luckily, I don't have that. I have others. Not that. Not that
should
one.
not be brewing.
That
So I don't
absolutely.
see that at all.
That's one
So
thing.
I'm like, you do, you know, you do your thing, I do my thing, and we do our things.
thing as well.
And we keep
There should be our
space.
thing though, and you
Absolutely,
guys have
yeah.
Yeah, now I think there's a little
No,
too,
this is a
too
good
much,
example
but
of
yeah.
that.
That's our thing.
And you know,
So
just
good with
since we are talking about our thing, we also do another interesting our thing,
Yeah.
which is as a family we run a not-for-profit initiative called My Daughter is Precious.
that. Okay, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So
That's another collaboration.
That's another collaborative
Yes,
where,
yes.
you know, over the last 7-8 years, we've supported the graduation education of the girl child.
Okay.
Right? So we've collaborated with 2 colleges in Delhi and we financially support them, and Nirupama runs a mentoring cohort for the girls, one-on-one mentoring. So that's again something that we do as a family.
And you
right?
both are equally passionate about it. Having a daughter, as I just
Absolutely.
heard.
In fact, it's our, you know, our
That's
daughter
how it
was
started,
the
yeah.
one who started. That's a family collaboration, which brings another level of collaboration, because our daughter also has her own opinion about how we do
Correct.
it.
Yeah.
And now we've actually pretty much divided. He takes care of a lot of the funding and the word of mouth. I take care of the mentoring and the
Yeah.
girls. And so, but we both believe in the cause.
And it's important to work towards the same objective, right?
Yes.
We are working towards educating as many girls as possible.
Yeah.
Or here it was about getting the best quality book we could get out.
Yeah.
So what I gather, and this is what I have gathered from talking to a lot of couples who work together, and Nirupama, again, your mantra for a successful relationship, if you can also tell me that, is it therefore very important to be primarily aligned in your thought process, in your values, wanting the same things in the broader perspective, like both of you wanting to do this, you know, is that something? And what else would you say, anything to add on what makes a relationship?
Yeah. So I think it's important to realize that each relationship is unique and different. And, you know, we've seen many other marriages close up front. So each has a different dynamic that works.
Always,
I think you have to figure out what is the dynamic that works for us. And ultimately, it comes to that, being together is better, at least 55% than not being together.
Okay.
Right? So I think that is the commitment, because of course we fight, and we do resent each other, we have frustrations, we have arguments, but
How good is the good and how bad is the bad?
exactly, and
As long as
as
the
long
good
as the
is-
good is, as I say, 55%, 55%.
I'll take it.
Yeah, take it, right. Yeah. And you know, it's then you're committed to that.
Yeah.
And the day that is not there, and I think that's where a lot of couples decide to go their separate ways. But we believe that, you know, that common fundamental commitment to the relationship is there, and I feel right now being together is better, and we can do interesting things together. That I think is important to realize. Then if we are not together, you know, our life is not going to be at least at 55%, and it is going to be messy. And to be honest, you've gotten used to one person. You're able to handle that.
In any case, you
In
need
any
to work
case,
with someone.
you have to,
You have
yeah.
to learn to work with people. And
You
when
have to learn to
a-
work with people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Someone
and
you build a relationship
exactly.
over the years.
Yes.
Should be ideally easier.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise, how will you even imagine working with someone who you don't know the ins and the, you know, them in and out?
Yeah.
That would be a far bigger challenge. Just you know.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, also the other thing is, are you growing together in some way, right? Are you making each other's slightly better for having been together, right? And
Supporting each other.
supporting each other. As I said, we can leverage each other's skills.
And adding value to each
Yeah,
other.
and we both are actually quite different, I would say, temperamentally, right?
But yet there's a realization that his skills do help you and your skills help him.
Absolutely.
I can already see that there is that,
that little bit
synergy,
of that little bit of balance is there, and ultimately believing in the positive intention of the other person. They are not there to make your life miserable, though many times it might seem that way.
But she has a sense of humor. Now
No
I know
comments.
why. That also keeps you going.
Yeah, it seems like you are out to really ruin my life, but deep down you know that is not their intention. That they are really annoying you, but that is as much to do with you as them. And then, as I said, take things lightly. Don't make a huge. I mean, that's
again, I come back to that intuition. Like a woman's intuition is never wrong. So deep down, what she says is that the gut feeling.
That
it's ultimately he's there. I mean,
it's okay. He's not. His intention.
Yeah,
is actually not to make my life miserable, but to make it slightly better. And it's very interesting. We do research on empathy, and I do a lot of workshops on empathy, and there are different types of empathy, right? What we call cognitive empathy. I know where you're coming from. I know why you might have that perspective.
That empathy
is very important. People normally think about empathy as what we call empathetic concern is I feel for you. That emotional empathy is also important. But for me, again, as I said, I come from the Rishika side. As long as I know where you're coming from, or I think you are saying that possibly because of that.
So you don't take offense.
I won't
what
take
is
offense to
visible.
what is there. So I should get
that is maturity. I think that is tremendous amount of maturity,
Yeah.
which I am sure is connected to the nurturing quotient and the EQ. I would say that whole thing about where it comes from. Beautifully said. So a couple of last two questions on success and happiness. It's again my favorite question I ask all my guests. What, according to you, what makes you happy? What you define as success and happiness?
So to me, happiness is, I think, in the moment, right? There could be small things that will make me happy, right? It's like those glimmer moments that we talk about. Having a nice meal, having a coffee with a friend, could be as heavy as writing a book. So, I mean, to me, it's all of those. I think, I'm a very big believer of the circle of concern and circle of influence. So the more I'm able to operate in the circle of influence where I can do something about it versus saying, oh, this is bad, that is bad, and so on and so forth, I'm being in a state of being able to be happy on an ongoing basis. So to me, it's that.
Nirupama, your idea of it.
Yeah, so it's interesting, my company is called Powerful Life, and that's because when I was doing my last book, I did a lot of research, and I said, for me, success is living a powerful life. And what I mean by living a powerful life is when you're living a life which is aligned to your values, purpose, and strengths, where you are in full flow and acceptance of who you are, and you're living it according to your values. And when I say living your purpose is whatever your purpose is, making a significant difference to the whole. For me, that is success. It's not about your size of your bank balance or what car you're driving or what assets you have accumulated, but just having that clarity that this is what makes me happy. This is who I am, and I accept myself truly and fully for who I am. And I am living a purpose that is meaningful and worthwhile, whatever that is, right? I'm not saying you have to be the CEO, though we do talk about leaders. But I am living a life aligned to my purpose, values, feeling joyful, and also hopefully spreading joy around. For me, that is success. And I agree with the happiness. For me, it's the glimmer moments, right? The ability to find happiness in simple day-to-day things, and having a happiness set point where, for me, I think I'm more of a person who has equanimity, right? Treating whatever comes your way with grace and joy, I think is what is happiness.
Said. And I totally understand, the fact that you decided to write this book, because there's so much that I gained from this conversation, and I'll definitely ask my viewers to look up this book. The Nurturing Quotient is available now.
It's just coming out. Pre-ordering is started on Amazon.
So
yeah, and when you see it in bookstores, go and pick it up.
Thank you so much, Rajesh and Nirupama. Thank you so much for
Afrida. Pleasure having this conversation.
We enjoyed the conversation.
Yes,
Thank you.
It's given us more insights about our relationship. Just talking about it.
I'm glad.